Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, in this video, we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about for a while, but there's probably not many of you out there that don't know about the case of Nicola Bulley. This is the beautiful Nicola and her partner, Paul Ansell. Oof. Where do I start with this case? As I say, I think most of you will know about this case. This is Nicola Bulley. It actually happened in the UK. This lady, mother of two, 45 years old, partner to Paul, took her children to school one Friday morning, then took her dog Willow for a walk by the River Wyre. I'm going to show you where that is in the UK in a moment. Took her dog Willow for a walk, as she often did after dropping the girls off at school, two young children she had, and disappeared into a puff of smoke. It's one of those cases, isn't it? Total mystery. I think we all remember about it. It was a completely massive case, wasn't it? That international it became, because Nicola was missing for 23 days. And 23 days is a long, long time, isn't it? So it's a long time, and there was nothing, no clues, no, 1 minute she was there, the next minute she was gone. So also, I think it was handled really badly by law enforcement at the time. The Lancashire police have admitted so much in the report that was released. They handled it terribly. Nicola Bulley's partner, Paul, was not protected enough from the media, etc. But of course, then you could argue they didn't know where this case was going to go, how people were going to get so invested with it. So, it's why did Nicola's case create so much interest when people go missing every day? Personally, for me, I think Nicola's case created so much interest for various reasons. Obviously, Nicola's a very attractive woman, so that helps, doesn't it, as far as the media is concerned. Also, she was doing such an ordinary thing. She took her children to school. She took her dog for a walk along the river. She was on the phone. She was seen talking into the phone. She'd logged into a work call. Then her phone was found on the bench, and her dog was found running around, and the harness was there on the banks of the river. It's so mysterious, the whole thing, so mysterious, so strange. And many people, including me, even now, don't think it was as straightforward as the coroner's inquest made it out to be. Finally, so I'm running ahead of myself now. So Nicola was missing for 23 days. In those 23 days, you name it, there was a theory about what had happened to Nicola. TikTokers descended on the scene. There had to be a removal, a dispersal order made, because everybody was just turning up at the scene. The locals were getting annoyed with it. The family was getting annoyed with it. The police were getting annoyed with it. And it wasn't, as I say, it wasn't only a local furore, or even just a British, national furore. It was worldwide, this story. There can't be many people who haven't heard of it. If you're interested in true crime, which technically this is not a true crime, because at the coroner's inquest, it was found to be an accidental death when Nicola was finally found. So technically it's not a crime, though many people think that there was some crime involved. You just don't know where to start with it sometimes, do you? But Paul, the thing that I'm on here to talk about today in this video is her partner Paul, who at the time a lot of people suspected. And we're going to look into why people suspected him, including me. I mean, the thing is, it is a sad fact of life that when a partner goes missing, it probably 80% of the time is their partner that's disposed of them. It happens. So it's it's almost inevitable, really. And then some of Paul's behaviours, because, at the end of the day, we expect people to behave how we think they should behave. I'm currently researching a video that's very reminiscent of this case. It isn't always something, it isn't always the partner, of course, even though sometimes it really looks like it is the partner. So Paul was reviled, wasn't he? Really, probably still some people are suspicious of him and think, will we ever know the truth about what happened in the Nicola Bulley? How did she end up in the water? Because she was finally found in the water. So she went missing by the side of this river, the River Wyre at St. Michael's on Wyre. Let me just put the river back up. The infamous bench. I've been there to this spot. It's very difficult to fall in the water there, I would say. I can't see how you could fall in the water. That is my whole thing with this. I don't know what happened to Nicola. I just don't know. But I do feel there's more to it, because I've been there and I can't see how you could possibly fall into that water. And even if you did fall into it, it's so shallow in that part, you just, it just would. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Even one of the neighbours said you'd have to try really hard to fall in the water there. Maybe further up she could have fallen in, but not there. Anyway, there you go. So let's just have a look at where this is in the UK, just for anybody who does not know. I need to share this. So it happened in St. Michael's on Wyre, which is in the north of the UK, near Blackpool, if you know anything about UK geography. Let's see if I put the Google map up. Let's make sure it's sharing. Sometimes it doesn't share until I remove the other thing. Move that. Why is it not sharing? Hang on. It says it's sharing, but it's not. Let's try again. Try one more time, see if it comes up. So, yeah, if you know the UK at all, it's not showing, is it? It is not showing. I don't know why it's not showing, but never mind. We'll, doesn't matter. Anyway, it's in the north of the UK, near Blackpool, or not that far from Manchester either. If you know any UK geography at all, that's where St. Michael's on Wyre is. And that's where it happened. As I say, on the banks of the River Wyre, Nicola took her children to school, took her spaniel Willow, went off to walk him, as she had done a million times probably on a regular basis, was in a work call, was connected onto a work call. She'd sent an email, a couple of emails and messages, and disappeared into a puff of smoke. 23 days, despite searches by police divers. Oh my God, that when she first went missing, the wilderness dog literally was out looking for Nicola. And it's a very small area. That's one thing that I want to say about it as well. That area around the bench and the field, when you go there, you're struck by how small it is. How could she not have been seen falling into the water? And then, it just doesn't make sense, any of it. But she wasn't found. So we had mountain rescue, we had police out searching, the fire brigade was out searching, there were self-professed specialist divers out searching. Nobody found Nicola. 23 days, nada, zilch, nothing, none of her items, clothing. Some things had been left behind. Her phone was on the bench, the dog's harness, etc. But none of the actual clothes that Nicola was found in this 23 days. And then people, not only that, certain self-professed experts were saying, oh, she was categorically not in the river, and casting aspersions that maybe she'd run off with somebody or there was foul play. So, of course, you can imagine in 23 days, fever pitch struck as far as conspiracy theories were concerned. And the prime suspect at the end of the day was her partner. I think at the time, definitely Paul was prime suspect for most of us. And I'll hold my hands up and say I was one of those people. Now, one thing I would say is the very first time I felt suspicious of Paul was not because of social media or anything. I saw an article on the Mirror, the Daily Mirror. I remember it as clear as anything. And they showed the photo because Paul did this. This is what we're going to listen to him talking about on this video. He got sort of roped into this Sky News interview on the banks of the river, and he was smiling and he was acting what we would consider inappropriately. And the Daily Mirror captured an image of him smiling, put it on their front page. That was the first time I looked at that and thought, oh my God, what is he smiling about? And I'm not the only one. Lots of YouTubers, some YouTubers that are out there now saying different theories of what they think that happened. At the time, we were comparing Paul to Chris Watts. Of course, that video has disappeared now off that YouTuber's channel. But I remember that clearly, saying that, they did a whole, comparison video about how Paul Ansell was like Chris Watts. Now they're saying some pensioner pushed into the river. This is like the craziness that the crap that people were talking. So that is how I first thought, oh, that looks a bit strange. That was on the Daily Mirror. So they can blame social media all they want, and the social media, of course, had their hand in it all. But part of the reason people's attention turned to Paul was because of mainstream media, not because of social media. And then social media, because social media does tend to pick up on mainstream media, I think, rather than the other way around. You see sort of things in, I don't know, mainstream media online, and you think, oh, that's strange, and you look into it a bit more. That's in my case anyway, because, mainstream media is where you tend to get the news from first. Unless somebody's actually there at the scene and they're recording things at the scene, and then I think social media is quicker. So all hell let loose, didn't it? It was, just really, when you look back on it now, it's like some collective madness, isn't it? It's just, and 23 days this happened. So Paul made this interview, which was a mistake, but I think he just it was like a knee-jerk reaction. He also did another interview then, didn't he? Was it on Channel 4 or Channel 5? That was a mistake. He shouldn't have really made any interviews, maybe just an appeal. If the police would have dealt with it better, they could have got, the family, as Ernie and Dot Bulley, Nicola's mum and dad, and her sister, they did make an appeal, but Paul wasn't included in that appeal, was it? And then Paul's friend Emma sort of took over everything, and that all, backfired and everything. But now that we've seen the police report, we can see that she was almost left to do it, because the police were so rubbish, weren't they, over the whole thing? There was a lot of problems, internal problems with Lancashire police. a lot of dissent and people not happy with their roles, etc. Now, I've got a whole playlist. I've made lots of Nicola Bulley videos. The playlist is listed in the description of this video, so I'm not going to go into all the weird and wonderful things that happened during the Nicola Bulley case, but you can see it on there. So before I continue, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you to all of you that support my channel that little bit more by being members, buying Ko-fis or sending super stickers, PayPal, etc. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the channel, and remember my other channel. So this video, there probably won't be much waffle in this video as normal because I've got a lot to get through. But the reason you can go onto my other channel, and I will edit this video and put it onto my other channel for those of you who prefer a shorter video. That's all. So yeah, hello lovely lurkers. Hello replay crew, thank you for watching. Hello trolley dollies, I know you'll all be out there. It's a Nicola Bulley video. I definitely have the trolley dollies out there watching. I hope you're well. Okay, so let's take the banner off. So 23 days, nothing, nada, zilch. And then what happened 23 days later after Nicola Bulley disappeared off the face of the earth? A psychic, Jason Rothwell. Have I got a picture of him somewhere? Yeah. Jason Rothwell. Here he is on the right here. He's with his friend Marie. He was walking along the river one Sunday afternoon, and there was Nicola, her body. Bless her. Unfortunately deceased. Now you'll see in most articles, they always said the police found Nicola. The police did not find Nicola. No matter whether people like Jason Rothwell or don't like him, he found her. He found her. And, you know, I've shown videos of him saying how it came to be that he was there. He's talking out a little bit more now because he didn't. The other thing that people forget about Jason, I remember clearly, because obviously everyone friended him on Facebook because they wanted to know, you know, what was going on. Jason, and a lot of people, you know, very unfairly, I think, calling him a grifter and this, that, and the others. And normally the people that calling him a grifter, they're total grifters themselves. It's just ironic. But anyway, he said clearly at the time, I am not doing any readings. He refused to do readings. Do you imagine when he found Nicola Bulley? The world and his dog wanted a reading from Jason Rothwell. He could have made an absolute fortune, but he stated clearly he was not doing it. So, you know, leave him alone. You know, people say he's weird or is this or is that. He's a psychic. Psychics are weird, and whether you like it or not, psychics have a value in society just like everybody else. What's your value in society? The people that don't like Jason, what do you do for the good of people, you know? So psychics have a value. Some psychics are bad and some psychics are good. And I don't know about Jason. I've never had a psychic reading from him. But one thing I do know about Jason is he found Nicola Bulley. You can't, you know, you can talk around it as much as you want. He found her. And, you know, where were the police? I mean, 23 days later, and the police were supposedly saying, oh, yes, she's likely to appear in 23 days, because that's a scientific fact that bodies, sadly, when people go into water, they sink to the bottom, and then it can take 21 days roundabout for them to rise to the top again. And the police knew that. Well, so why weren't they walking along the river looking for her if that was supposed to be when she was going to pop up? So, you know, Jason found her, and that's all there is to it. And I personally quite like Jason. I've watched him being interviewed just recently as well. And, you know, he is what he is. He is a psychic. He is a little bit, you say odd, but you know what? what do you mean by odd? You know, he's a psychic. He lives in a different world. He's got a different look on the world. You know, nobody tells other people how to think, and you know nobody should tell other people how to think. You know, we all have our freedom of expression, even psychics. And as far as making money from being a psychic, well, I just don't get why people get upset about that. So what are you supposed to live on? Just live in a cardboard box? You know, people charge for their services. You know, you wouldn't expect not to pay a plumber or not to pay a band that you wanted to play in your local pub or whatever. What difference does it make? Just don't get it at all. Anyway, there you go. That's my little rant about that done. So the fact is, but of course, this made the whole thing even stranger because not only to disappear for 23 days and nobody knows where you are or what's happened to you, and then to be found by a psychic, it was just one of the many strange things in this case. And then what happened was, you know, the family got quite angry, didn't they, with the so-called experts that had said, you know, she was categorically not in the river. And then, of course, now are saying, oh, yeah, I found her within 3 minutes or whatever. You know, these are horrible people. They're the ones to be, they're the grifters. They're the people that you need to watch out for. They're just doing it for their own attention. I didn't see that with Jason, and Jason's been through quite a lot, I think. But anyway, regardless of your own personal opinions about psychics or so-called experts, I know that who the family have got more respect for, and the family have got more respect for Jason because they spoke to Jason, he went to talk to them. It's a difficult thing being a psychic because at the end of the day, you are operating on a different level than other people, you know, because you know that people are going to doubt what you say or think you're crazy or whatever, you know, or if you even if you're not a psychic, like you know, that's not your sort of profession, but you get flashes of things. You know that when you tell people that you've had a strange experience, they're not necessarily going to believe you, are they? So it's quite, sometimes people keep their experiences to themselves. Anyway, so she was found and she was identified by her dental records. The autopsy said drowning, death by drowning, didn't it? But there was a lot of controversy over that because she had bruises on her body. She had those, oh God, I always forget the names of it, those hemorrhages in her eyes that are normally associated with strangulation. You know, so even with the forensic reports, etc., and then finally when the inquest finally happened many months later, the coroner, everyone was very disappointed in the coroner. People, including me, thought it should have been an open verdict because it could not be proven that nothing could be proven. Did Nicola fall into the river accidentally? We don't know. Was she pushed in? We don't know. Did she throw herself in? We don't know. We don't know the answer to any of those questions, but for some reason, instead of coming up with an open verdict that coroners normally do when it's unclear how somebody enters the water, the coroner decided it was, on the balance of probabilities, an accidental death, and that is what is recorded. Now, when I say the family seemed, I won't say happy with that verdict, because obviously they would have been happier if Nicola would never have died in the first place, but they seemed content with that verdict. The family haven't disputed the verdict, and that, you know, that to me is, you know, where my role ends in that. You know, Nicola Bulley was not my family. Her, whether you think her partner had anything to do with it or not, but what about her mum and dad and her sister? What, you think they were all in on it, that they all, I don't believe that's true. So that for whatever reason, they maybe just because they wanted to move on, or maybe they'd just been through so much trauma, or maybe they really believed that it was accidental. They accepted that verdict. They haven't challenged that, but in fact, they pushed for that verdict. So as far as I'm concerned, I have to respect their decision, if you like. And the thing is, if some evidence came up, obviously, that there was more to it than that, but there's no evidence really of anything. That's the problem with this case. I think it'll be a case that will be spoken about forever, always. Always people will not be happy with, for whatever reason, what the final verdict was. Some people will always think it was foul play, and maybe that Paul was involved, or maybe someone else was involved. I mean, I can never forget the man in black that was seen at the scene, the screams that were heard. Nobody heard a splash, though, did they? So it's all very, I do believe there is more to it, but I don't know what the more to it is. I could talk about it forever, but I have no evidence of anything. So the reason I'm doing this video now is because Paul has spoken up. So this was Paul by the river that day. Yeah, he did that really weird sort of smile and laugh, and that's really what did it for people thinking that Paul had something to do with Nicola's death. Also, he was quite a long time, he didn't appear, wasn't he? And then suddenly he appeared. And then he did this sort of car crash interview on the banks of the river, smirking. Then he did the next interview with, what's his name, Dan. With Dan on Channel 4, he did this interview. And again, see, to all of us, he came over. We didn't think he came over as we thought he should come over. But, at the end of the day, it's difficult because I didn't know Paul before Nicola died. So you have no gauge, if you like, to see, is he acting strangely, differently than before, or is this how he always is? So anyway, it didn't come over well on this interview either. He should never have done it, but anyway, he did it. And then, of course, it was even stranger because just after this interview, Dan Walker, the guy who interviewed him, he was knocked off his bicycle, wasn't he? And he ended up in hospital, and there was a lot of talk about that. There's been so many odd things that have happened around this case. There was the vet who self-deleted herself with stabbing herself in a hotel in London, saying she was being persecuted by groups of people. There's, literally, as I say, if you have a look at my playlist, there's so many strange things in this case. Anyway, it's a couple of years ago now, and of course Nicola's little girls are older now. I hope they're coping all right. I really do hope they're coping. Paul will have had to have been a mother and father to them, and contrary to other rumours that were going around, Paul did not flee to America. He's still living in the same area, from what I can gather, bringing the girls up without their mother, and they've been through Christmases without Nicola, birthdays, Mother's Days, etc. So it will have been a very difficult time. Anyway, the reason it's all back in the news is because Paul has spoken, and we're going to listen to him talking at a lecture for the London School of Economics, the criminology department. They do podcasts, and they've done a podcast. Well, it's a lecture, and then they turn it into a podcast. And they've done a podcast about the effects of social media, etc., and what it's like being in the center of everything. Now, I must stress that the podcast isn't only about Paul. The podcast is about other other, what's the word, famous cases, if you like the post office scandal, the Manchester arena bombings that, some people are always saying were a hoax, which is just so insulting, I think, to the victims. But anyway, quite a few different cases, and Paul is one of them. And he speaks out. He's very softly spoken, Paul, isn't he? He's like, I do get the impression with Paul, he's not a person who feels comfortable speaking in public. And maybe that's why he comes over a little bit awkward. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Only Paul knows the truth, really, at the end of the day. So, I'm not here to cast aspersions on him. I can see things in him that you think, oh, that's a bit strange. But I don't even know how I would react in that circumstance. So I don't know how I'm going to know how somebody else would react. But yeah, we're going to listen to what he says, and then you can decide. You can decide what you think from the way he talks. So he's talking about his experience, but it's not only him. There's a couple of different people, but they're all quite interesting cases, I think. So we're going to listen. I've skimmed a lot of the podcast, like the introduction, etc. But basically, this is someone from the criminology department, and they've got a panel to talk about these cases that hit the media, especially social media, of course. We're the demons of everything. And you hear the victims speaking, and then they go on. The panel that they've got goes on to talk about it. We may not listen to the panel. I haven't listened to the panel yet, so I'll suss that out when I get to it, whether I think if it's of any value for us or not. But certainly, of course, what is of value? Hi, Heather. Okay, so straight away, yeah, there's something about Paul's eyes. Well, see what you think when you hear him, what he's got to say in this. Oh, I haven't said hello to people, have I? Sorry. Hi, Lily. Hi, Mark. Hi, Daniel. And hi, Heather. Yeah, people are not sure about Paul, that's a fact, but listen, we'll have a listen and then see if you feel that. Do any of you feel any different now than you did in the beginning? It is something about his eyes, isn't it? There is something about his eyes. Bless him. I'm saying bless him because I don't know if he did anything or not. But yeah. Anyway, does address that. As he's going to be talking in a minute, you see, he does address that. People saying, "Oh, my eyes aren't right," but they're the only eyes he's got. People have said that to me. What's with your eyes? It's like, these are my eyes I was born with. There's nothing, there's nothing I can do. But yeah, there's something about Paul. But might just be because he's uncomfortable being in the limelight. I don't know. And he said some strange things, didn't he? I do feel there's definitely more to this. Maybe there's more to their relationship that we know, but then that's private, isn't it? You won't want someone knowing about your relationship. So, yeah, she did look very angry that morning, didn't she? As well, as she was sort of marching off with the kids in the car, and she did look angry. And then, of course, it all came out, supposedly, that she was struggling with the menopause and alcohol. And, she was, I do feel like Nicola was sort of dragged. That was, of course, thanks to Mark Williams Twonk, who was threatening to sell that story. So the police had to release the information that Nicola, was supposedly perimenopausal or going through the menopause. And that sort of didn't sit well with, certainly I was fuming, because at that time when that came out about Nicola's struggles with supposed struggles with the menopause and alcohol and depression, Nicola hadn't been found yet. So I just remember thinking, oh my God, this woman, if she has taken herself off somewhere, to just get a bit of peace, and she sees this all over the TV, then she is going to think, God, now all of a sudden everyone's talking about her mental health and her menopausal problems. Imagine having all your frailties, all your vulnerabilities discussed like that internationally. So, I remember thinking at the time, oh my God, if she has gone off somewhere, she ain't coming back now, that's for sure, because she'd be embarrassed to come back having had her, her whole life discussed, discussed in public, And yeah, I think you're right, Mark. Men do blame menopause or do they blame periods, don't they? How many times, if you get angry with the man in your life, how many times do they turn around and say, is it that time of the month? Like you can't be angry unless it's your time of, no, it's not my time of the month. I'm angry with you because you've been acting like a twonk. It's not because it's my time of the month. So, I do think things can get blamed on hormones, and sometimes it is hormones, but it's not always hormones, is it? And at the end of the day, the menopause. I know it's a difficult time for a lot of people, but I don't like people talking about as if it's an illness, because things can get blamed, like you say, on it. It's like, oh, well, they're on the menopause, or, oh, it's not an illness. It's not an illness. It is a natural part of life. So you have to go through it. If you're a woman, you have to go through it. You don't have a choice in it. Some women seem to have worse times than others. You have to seek what help you can. It's like, but I think you've got to be careful about letting it define you as a woman, because then people start blaming everything on it. Other people do. So anyway, so that was another thing. And then, of course, another strange thing that had happened in this case, I mean, there's, could line them up, couldn't you? There's about 100 strange things. Was it 10 days before Nicola went missing, there was a welfare check on her. Her sister Louise had phoned, for an ambulance, because they were worried about the way she was acting, and then she'd had a fall and hit her head, and she'd had to go and get a head scan, and so a lot of people weren't sure if there was domestic abuse in this relationship. How did she really? She said she slipped on some water from the dog's bowl. Well, we've all heard that before from domestic people who, I'm not saying she was suffering from domestic abuse, but it's a possibility. So it was just another strange thing that added to all the other strange things. And then 10 days later, she was disappeared. And 23 days later, she was found deceased. So there is more to it. I think 100% there's more to the whole thing. But I don't think we'll ever know, sadly. Anyway, let's have a listen to what Paul has said. Now, you're going to have to tell me if you can hear it or not, because sometimes I have a bit of an issue with the sound. So this is a lecture at London School of Economics, and it is the title of this lecture is Mass Media, Justice and Me, A Victim's Perspective. Step into the lives of those whose pursuit of justice collided with the power of the press. So that's the title of the lecture. Now, I'm going to try and share it with you. Let me put that down. Put his picture down for now. So, you can listen to it's a very interesting lecture, actually. I mean, I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's an hour and a half or whatever, but the whole thing is interesting. But we're just going to listen to the victims and what they had to say. Oh, now a bit of waffle here. Did you watch last night on Channel 5? Did you watch the program about Hugh Edwards? Oh my God. I was crying at the end of that program. That boy, Ryan, is it? Right. Well, that's the name they gave him in the documentary. So it was Martin Clunes who played Hugh Edwards. What an actor. What an actor. He's such a good actor. I didn't even realise it was Martin Clunes. I kept thinking, oh, he looks a bit like Martin Clunes. But I didn't realise it was Martin Clunes. It was a very good, it's not a documentary, it was a dramatisation of what happened in the Hugh Edwards case. It was very, very good. I don't know if I'll be able to record it and play it one day, maybe, or put it on the channel somehow, or put it on Rumble for people to watch. I don't know if I can do that or not, but it was very powerful, very good. What an absolute, sorry, excuse my French, what an absolute bar steward Hugh Edwards is. How did he get away with no prison? You know, because not only he's never been charged with what he did to the young lad, because I think the young lad was 17 and the young lad was a drug addict, and Hugh Edwards was sending him money, calling him baby. Oh God, did you see that? Did you see it? Yeah, the end was fantastic. We won't spoil the ending for those of you who didn't see it, but it was very clever, the ending, I think. Yeah, so this boy, he wasn't the only one that Hugh Edwards had done it to, but he's the one that got caught when he was saying, hi, baby. You know, oh God, it's just, honestly, it's get yourself a bucket to put next to you because it's just disgusting. The way he sort of talks to him. Bear in mind, Hugh Edwards, you know, he's like an elderly man, really. This boy was only 17. It's not about being gay or not. I don't care if Hugh Edwards is gay, straight, or curly. I couldn't give a toss, except for the deceit that it showed for his family. You know, my thing with Hugh Edwards is he's a paedophile. That's it. It's not whether, you know, he's gay or not. And of course, the way he's deceived his family. Prissy Hugh, you know, presenting this perfect family image and you know, presenting these church programs and, you know, one of those sort of, I'm Mr. Perfect. And in the meantime, he's far from the truth. So, of course, he was never prosecuted for anything he did to Ryan. Or why he ended up being prosecuted at all was because there was child P on his phone of the highest categories. But he did not get prison, did he? Why did he not get prison? Honest to God. If that was Joe Bloggs, you know, if that was my dad, my brother, or your dad, your brother, your son, whatever, he'd be in prison so quick. No, not Mr. Perfect Hugh Edwards. And do you know why I think that is? The more I think about it, he would take people with him. You know, the thing is, Hugh Edwards, he'll know about other famous PDFs. You know, so that's the same with Andrew, isn't it? Andrew. That's why Andrew will never be prosecuted. Andrew, formerly known as Prince. You know, Charlie Boy is always going to stick up for him because Andrew knows where his bodies are buried, knows about the skeletons in his closet. Nobody's ever going to, you know, they're all protecting each other. They're all protecting each other. And that's why Hugh Edwards didn't go to prison. And anyway, I would recommend anyone to watch that. And I've forgotten why I even started talking about it now. But yeah, very, very good dramatisation. Channel 5 do very good programmes, don't they? Hi, Kazzy. Yeah, exactly. Philip Schofield, he was another one. You know, they'd all protect each other. They're all the same as each other. So, thing is, you know, until he dies. When people die, then it all comes out, doesn't it? God, can you imagine what's going to come out when Trump dies or Andrew dies? Or it's all, oh yeah, we knew he was a PDF, like Jimmy Savile. Oh yeah, we knew all about it. Everybody knows all about it. Mohammed Fayed. Nothing happens until they die. And then suddenly everyone comes out the woodwork and says, oh yeah, we knew all about that. Rolf Harris. I mean, he didn't die. It did come out about him. But look at his connections with the royal family. They're all connected and they all know about each other. And that's why nobody will ever go to prison properly. Okay, so I've had a whinge about that. So I want to just check that you can hear this when I play it.
Begin festival with
I am a victim of the post office scandal, and I was accused of stealing £36,000 from the post office. The entire village turns out to support me. I ended up being splattered all over the local papers, accusing me of being a post office fraudster. And I ended up in the national papers because it was so extraordinary that amount of people would go and support technically a thief. It got people to ring me and
okay, good. So you can hear that's brilliant. So basically the first thing they do is they play a video at this lecture of several people who are involved in media storms. That first lady that's talking, she's part of the post office scandal. That was a whole nother thing, wasn't it? That's a terrible scandal. And, you know, crucified. People took their own lives because of the post office scandal. You know, people being accused of stealing when they weren't. So she's the first person. So I'm just going to play it now so you can hear all the things. But I think Paul Ansell is the second that talks after this lady, I think.
Say that they had a similar occurrence. It kick-started the whole campaign. A lovely lady called Natasha Bondy read an article in the Times that led her to go to ITV with the idea of a drama.
Well, it was, 27th of January 2023. And
so here's Paul now. He does speak very quietly. I think I've got it on the full volume, so I can't turn it up anymore, but he's quite quietly spoken.
Yeah. Nicky left for school with the girls and Willow and, never came home. I became a subject with the media in the sense of where's the partner, why is he not talking, sort of thing. I got out of the car, I don't think I knew what I was doing really. I got out of the car, then I got collared by Sky, and next minute I was doing this interview.
So it's going back to 22nd of May 2017. We know.
So according, I think he talks again later, so there's more to come from him. So yeah, he's just saying he just got out of the car, didn't know what he was doing. He got collared by Sky News, and because the mainstream media, they always whinge about social media, but they're relentless. I mean, there's this poor guy. If we take him at face value, this poor guy his missus has disappeared, the father of his children, and they're grabbing him for an interview. But the police should have been there to protect him from that as well, and the police do admit that in the College of Policing report. It was very odd, isn't it? Lancashire Police, they did make a complete balls up of the whole thing, didn't they? I mean, we've got, whatever you think of Paul, don't think of him. I personally, I can't make my mind up about him. The police messed it up and the family weren't protected enough, I don't think. It should have been a police organised appeal. It shouldn't have been interviewed by Sky News on the riverbank. or interviewed like that by Dan Walker. It should have been a police organised appeal for information about Nicola. You know, the whole family being there. That's what I think. You know, not Sky News to organise it. Let's play it again.
People to ring me and to say that they had had a similar occurrence. It kick-started the whole campaign. A lovely lady called Nicola Bulley read an article in the Times that led her to go to ITV with the idea of a drama.
Well, it was, 27th of January 2023, and Nikki left for school with the girls and Willow, and never came home. I became a subject with the media, in the sense of where's the partner, why is he not talking, sort of thing. I got out of the car, I don't think I knew what I was doing really. I got out of the car, then I got collared by Sky, and next minute I was doing this interview.
So it's going back to 22nd of May 2017. We know what happened at 22:31 with Sonia Beatty detonating a suicide bomb in the city room. Sadly for me.
Now, this is a case that I couldn't actually remember. So, maybe I missed this one. So this is somebody setting off a suicide vest that this guy's talking about.
He was stood 6 metres away when he detonated. The media weren't behaved, not very great. They were waiting outside each school, pretending to be parents. They were ringing the ward, pretending to be police officers, and it was really bad. To keep Eve out of the media. I said, well, if I go in front of the camera and take the heat off it, then maybe that'll stop people trying to get the stories.
But then, of course, psychoanalyzed, analysed, your eyes aren't right, you're smirking, there wasn't the papers or,
Yeah, so that was back to Paul then again. So there's a mixture of all these different people speaking on this video. So he's saying, like your eyes aren't right or your smirk isn't right. And if Paul is completely innocent and, it is awful what happened to him. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because they did want attention on Nicola's case. Thing is, somebody goes missing. We're seeing it with the Nancy Guthrie case now over in the USA, or any missing persons case. You want attention. There's people out there whose loved ones go missing who never get any media attention. And they're like, why is nobody interested in our loved one? And then you get other cases like Nicola Bulley case where there's almost too much media attention while she's missing. But you need that media attention as well, because otherwise how are you going to find her? So it's a very difficult situation, I think.
The news, it was more TikTok.
More social media. And individuals obviously then doing their own content just to get as many likes as they can and to make money.
So that's Louise there that's talking, isn't it? So she said, I do think some people do that. Some social media creators, hopefully, including me, I hope so. They do try. I mean, I learned a lot from the Nicola Bulley case. I'm even more cautious. I'm so cautious now about, checking out sources, because there were so many things that were said. And, with the best will in the world, most of us wanted to find out what had happened to Nicola, not in a bad way. We wanted to, because we were invested in Nicola, caring about her being found, being returned to her family, especially those two little girls. So, so you sort of, this part of you that's keen every time you get any information. You're keen to sort of, share this information. Maybe it'll help to find Nicola. But yeah, you've got to learn. Jay Slater was another one. You've got to learn, where does the zealousness turn into trolling, basically, at the end of the day, or be it cruelty to the family. You know, it's one thing to want to know what's happened to Jay Slater. Do you really? Because you care about what happened to him. But you're not the one who has to wake up every morning and know that you've had to bring your son home in a body bag from his holiday in Tenerife. And then sometimes these people, then they start trolling the people that are already suffering. So, you know, that I think you've got, as I say, Nicola's case was a couple of years ago now. You learn every case that you do. You have to be respectful until there's any evidence. No one's less respectful for me once it's found out someone's a twonk and they're guilty of something. Then, yeah, you know, it's free for all. But I'm not going to be, you know, saying horrible things about people's families until it's proven to be true.
Richard D. Hall, he says he's a journalist, even though he's got no qualifications. But fundamentally, he thinks that the Arena attack didn't happen. It was a government hoax, and
So this is another one, Richard Hall. You know, he's done a lot of work on the Madeleine McCann case and that, and I know that he's still, you know, doing true crime things, etc. You know, the Manchester Arena attack. He thinks it's a complete hoax, government hoax. There's a lot of people believe that. I personally don't believe that, and I think it's disrespectful to the families.
Actually got one of these people that study body language and what you say, and all his followers started kind of, you know, harassing me online and, you know, trolling. And
they made the drama, which had the most unbelievable results, more than we could ever have asked for. The government couldn't push us aside any longer. They couldn't bury us, which they've been doing up until then. The media has always been there rumbling below the surface. So, I mean, that's a good thing. And I thank the Mail and the Express for splattering me in the paper, even though at the time I hated it.
And a lot of what I've needed to do over the last few years, especially with the conspiracy theorist and a lot of the Arena stuff, I've needed a platform, and, you know, BBC and ITV have given me that. So actually, I've turned it around. I think I'd be a bit sad if it stopped tomorrow. I quite like being on TV, and, you know, I've done my own radio show, and so actually it's given me a media career, so to speak.
It's very, very intrusive, which, you know, which is a horrible thing to experience on its own, let alone with when you're experiencing everything that we were. And
It's Paul again.
Yeah, I mean, it can engulf you.
Thank you. So
basically, that is the video of the different victims of media storms talking. So not only Paul Ansell, of course. I think what I might do when I put this over on my other channel, when I edit it, I'll just edit out the other people speaking, so it's only Paul speaking, because that's, you know, what this video is about. But yeah, what do we think? Has anybody changed their mind about Paul? I mean, I know, you know, just from some of the people on the chat there. Hi, Angel. You know, a lot of people are now, you know, thinking maybe Paul was misjudged. I don't know. The problem with this Nicola Bulley case is there were so many mysterious things about it, and, you know, people, I think nearly everybody identified Hang on. Hello? Buenos días. Pero ¿para qué? ¿Para qué me llamas? Es que estoy trabajando. Sí, ¿para qué? Ah, vale, lo siento, no puedo hablar, estoy trabajando ya. Okay. There you go. Somebody trying to sell me something. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah. Anyway. Vale. So, oh God, I'm speaking in Spanish now. So, yeah, I've completely lost the thread of what I was saying. Yes, the problem with the Nicola Bulley case. Oh, that's right. Everybody identified with Nicola. So if you're a mum, you could identify with her because she's a mother of young kids. If you're older, you could identify because she could be your daughter. You could identify with Dot. You know, men, I think, felt protective of Nicola, and women did as well. So everybody had felt this connection with Nicola one way or another, and she always just looked, she's smiling, of course, on every photo. She just looked like such a she's got that look of a lovely person. So, you know, apart from being attractive, you know, so it's just one of those cases that reached everyone. Then there was a dog. If you're a dog walker, you could feel the affinity because you go and walk your dogs. You know, everybody could relate to Nicola. I think that's why it sort of took over. And then the mystery of it, of course, because it was 23 days of total mystery. And then these self-professed experts coming out and saying she was categorically not in the water and insinuating that crime had occurred. There's all those things that all contributed. Let's just have it. So this, of course, yeah, the infamous bench. That's where her phone was found on the bench. The harness was found halfway down. They looked like it was a staged scene, wasn't it? You know, that's how it looked, and that's what the self-professed diving expert said it was. He said that the phone was a decoy, and then when he said it, then Paul started saying it as well, that the phone was a decoy. You know, and it's that got taken up and spoke about even more. Oh, it's a decoy. The phone was left there to make it look as if she'd gone into the river. The harness was left there to make it look that she'd gone into the river. People started putting out false videos. And then, of course, that was, you know, talked about a lot. A lot of fake videos were made, a lot of fake Facebook posts, anonymous Facebook posts that people, oh, look, it's so, I used, God, I mean, I get quite a lot of emails now, but then I was getting hundreds. And people say, oh, look what this person said on this other YouTube channel, or look what this anonymous poster said on the Facebook page, or, you know, people were believing everything. People wanted to believe there was more to it. And then, of course, how strange can it get? And then 23 days later, there was Jason there finding her. And then just at the same time, Curtis Media, who now turns out we now know is an actual SEX offender, but he was quite good at making videos, but of course he makes videos of women as well. You know, he's like not a nice person at all. We now know about him. He was there and he filmed Nicola being removed from the river. And also, well, he'd film anything, wouldn't he? He had no morals whatsoever. He would tell people he wasn't recording when really he was. he got barred from the area. Then as soon as he was allowed back in the area, he was back. He was filming Paul Ansell, who was going to the school to pick up the girls. You know, he's just not a nice person. I mean, I think you do have to imagine it in your own head. If it was you, you're just, you know, you're not only grappling with the loss of your partner, but you're trying to provide stability for your two little girls, and then you're going to the school to get them, and some sex offenders there taking a video of you. You know, it's not nice, is it? Hi, Julie. You know, and the thing is, if Paul did have something to do with Nicola's demise, I don't think we'll ever know. I personally don't think he had anything to do with it, but I don't think their home life maybe was as happy. I don't know. On the BBC documentary, he said all they needed was each other, that they were really happy together. And thing is, we don't know any different, do we? Because we don't know the ins and outs of their relationship. But only he knows the truth. And of course, Nicola, but she's not here anymore, bless her, is she? So anyway, so that's what I wanted to come on and talk about. Paul has finally spoke. Well, I say finally spoke. He spoke, of course, in the BBC documentary that the family did. Yeah, and just one thing I do want to, because when I was first reading about this in the Daily Mail, and then I realised I could actually listen to Paul's own words on the podcast that the London School of Economics had put out. When I went on the Daily Mail, they're talking about it says, Nicola Bulley's partner opens up about being psychoanalyzed by strangers after dog walker's disappearance caught the attention of TikTok ghouls. It's always TikTok that get the worst of it, isn't it? It said he's opened up about being psychoanalyzed by strangers after the mother of two's disappearance caught the attention of TikTok ghouls. And he said that the constant questioning of how he looked and behaved during the search for his missing partner of 12 years was a horrible thing to experience. And he described the barrage of unbased online conspiracies as very intrusive. And he said he became a subject with the media in the sense of, where's the partner? Why is he not talking? Sort of thing. So basically what he's saying is that first they were saying, why is he not talking? And then, of course, when he started talking, that looked suspicious as well, didn't it, really? And he said, you're being psychoanalyzed, analysed, your eyes aren't right, you're smirking. It wasn't the papers or the news, it was more TikTok. That's what he said. But interesting to me is, even in this, so it says here, a coroner recorded Miss Bulley's death as accidental and said she fell into the river and suffered cold water shock, and there was no evidence to suggest self-deletion. Thing is, there was no evidence of anything, was there? And police accused TikTokers of playing private detectives in the area and said they were inundated with false information, accusations and rumours. People on social media made false accusations about third-party involvement. Rumours were spread about a derelict house on the other side of the river Wyre, a red van in the area, God, I remember all these, a fisherman seen nearby, and a glove belonging to Miss Bulley, which were all dismissed by police. Now, there was a man in black there because one of the witnesses said that. And Miss Bulley's sister Louise tearfully told the BBC documentary, as far as Nicky's going missing and the mystery to it, it was just an accident. It doesn't always have to be something sinister. Sometimes bad things happen. I just wish it hadn't happened to us. So apparently, Lancashire Constabulary received 75,000 social media comments over the course of a month, which overwhelmed them as they tried to pick out useful information. Now, so it goes on to mention Curtis Media, who apparently says that his video of Nicola being removed from the water was viewed 59,000 times, and it said it earned him £1,000 in royalties. I don't know if that's true, but anyway. And then apparently he was forced to delete it. But what it doesn't mention in this article, and it never mentions, it always says the police found Nicola. The police did not find Nicola. Jason Rothwell found Nicola. And it's like he's disappeared. He wasn't asked to speak at the inquest. It's like he's disappeared. It's like they don't want to, because he's a psychic. They don't, or they say a dog walker found Nicola. He wasn't walking a dog. It wasn't. It was him and his friend Marie. There was no dog. No dog. So I don't know. Yeah, that was another thing. His Pinterest, got hacked, and then his Instagram, which is his real Instagram. I've got a video on my channel about that somewhere. He does follow a lot of very young, I mean, I haven't looked at it for years, but, at the time, it was sort of a weird, the people he was following were like, I said, men like looking at scantily dressed women. I suppose that's just a fact of life. But I just remember thinking, if you were perimenopausal and maybe going through, a midlife crisis, and you found out that your partner had been following all these sort of scantily clad, very, very young girls, not illegally young, I mean, over 18, but not much more. You probably wouldn't be very happy, would you? I think if I found my, looked at my husband's phone and he had that kind of stuff on there, you would feel a bit uncomfortable, would you? Or wouldn't you, think, it'd make you feel bad? I don't know, especially if you were going through a bad time because of the menopause, and, she was 45, that's when you start to get, I mean, she was a beautiful woman. But, maybe that's when you start to feel insecure about the way you are. Personally, for me, it was the opposite. I felt insecure when I was young. I don't feel insecure now because I just don't care. But, I'm just saying, he did have, I have seen his Instagram account years ago, and I'd say I did a video about it at some point. He definitely likes, the women that he was following on there were like OnlyFans type people, and I don't know if that would have felt very good to Nicola, but or maybe she wouldn't have cared, I don't know. So you try and retaliate by putting a Chippendale or someone on your phone, but I don't know. Men like looking at women, that's a fact of life. I think you're never going to eradicate that. SEX has always sold, that's how OnlyFans took off. Of course, he's just died, hasn't he, recently? The guy who started OnlyFans, he just died, didn't he, within the last couple of days? He was only in his 40s, I think, early 40s. He had cancer. That's a shame, isn't it? I mean, God, he's built this massive empire. He's a multimillionaire, and then he dies of cancer. It's life is life. You never know what curveball life is going to throw you, do you? You just don't know. You just don't know what life is going to throw at you, do you? No matter how much money you've got or what your lifestyle is, or you should never look at other people and be envious, because you just don't know. Well, one, you have no idea if it's real, when you're looking at things on social media. I mean, this is an example. They look very happy there, don't they? Were they happy? We don't know. We'll never know. Only they know. And now only he knows, because Nicola's not here to tell us if they were happy or not. So maybe they were deliriously happy. You know, maybe this whole thing was just an accident. I don't think it was I can't. I don't want to believe it was an accident. You know, I don't want to think other things. But I tell you, even the psychic medium Jason, who found Nicola, his thoughts are that it wasn't an accident. So, yeah. But I can't shake that feeling that it wasn't an accident. But having said that, I don't know what happened. So I don't know what the alternative is. You know, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there again. So it's all, the whole case was strange. Some people think it was a psyops. I don't believe that. I don't believe it was a psyops. I think Nicola Bulley was a real person. And I think that it happened. You know, strange things do happen. As I say, I'm researching a video at the moment. Well, I've already researched it. I've just got to put the video together. Honestly, a case that you just will not believe. Strange things happen. Stranger things than this happen. So, you know, just because something's stranger than fiction, you can't believe that it didn't happen. So. Okay, so as always, let me know what you think. Do you think Paul was much maligned back in the day, or do you think, you know, what do you think? If you do think he was misjudged, why do you think he's misjudged? Or if you don't think he was misjudged, what's your reason for thinking that? Is it just a feeling you get, or is it literally, you know, the trouble is we operate from feelings. It's difficult for us to operate any other, you know, we have our feelings. We can't deny the way we feel about things, and we have our opinions, and there's nothing wrong with having an opinion, but there was never any evidence of anything against Paul, was there? So, you know, that's all the police can operate on. The police can't, you know, go to court and say, oh, well, we think Paul did something to Nicola because we've got a feeling. You know, just can't happen, can it? So, and, you know, some people do have unfortunate manners. You know, it's just like the way, when I say, you know, that's what we say about people, they've got an unfortunate manner, you know, just the way they come over is a little bit strange, but that, you know, that doesn't mean say they're liars, does it? So yeah, no, I don't think it was accidental. I don't know what happened, but I don't think I'll ever change that thought in my head that it wasn't accidental. And I'll always think that the coroner's verdict should have been an open verdict. But I can remember, because of course I covered the inquest, that's all on my channel as well. We followed the inquest, didn't we, day by day. And I knew for the day that when the coroner said she was, what did he call her, a holiday swimmer, I thought he's going to come up with an accidental death verdict here. Just knew it. I felt like he knew he was going to give an accidental death verdict. There was never any, I don't think there was ever any doubt, you know, he was going to give an accidental verdict. And you know, we looked at other cases that very same coroner has dealt with, and he's given open verdicts because it's not been able to establish how someone got in the water, you know, but not with Nicola. It was, oh yeah, accidental death. And, you know, the family's barrister did pressure him to do that. So that's what they wanted. So, you know, at the end of the day, I'm glad they got what they wanted, I suppose, but I do feel maybe one day we'll find something more out, hey? But mainly, I just hope all the family are recovering, but especially those two little girls who are 2 years older now, or is it 3 years now? So they've got to grow up without their mum. They're the most important ones, aren't they? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave your fingerprint on the like button, your DNA on the subscribe button. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you.